All right, so this is actually the part two of our Exchange Server 2013 or 2013, whatever we can call it. And the part one was we talked about most of the new changes which happened, and this is being the same topic today. We're going to talk about the major changes that Exchange Server 2013 has brought in, and I'm pretty much sure you know me, but those who doesn't know me, maybe somebody who joined today, I work as an infrastructure consultant and for the last 8 years and deal with the technologies such as Active Directory, messaging, SCOM, SCCM, and virtualization. And Road2Master is a kind of concept which we made so that we can share our knowledge. It's not something like as I said last day, it's not a one-way knowledge transfer. If you want to actually know about each other's, or if somebody among us has got a better knowledge on the technologies, then better we can actually have a session after making a discussion about each other. So it's not a one-way transaction. It's going to be a two-way knowledge transfer session. And let us get going for today. And the part one, which happened yesterday, is something we talked about the Exchange architecture from 2013 perspective. And we talked about what is an Exchange admin center, what are the changes that we have in the information store, certificate management, and messaging compliance, and messaging policy and compliance, either way we can say, and anti-malware protection, transport rules, mail flow, then recipient management. So what we're going to do today is the part two. That is going to be, we are focusing on the clients and the mobile devices. What is going to happen there? I may not be focusing on a non-Microsoft mobile devices because there are many like Android and iPhone. Maybe there's no big difference actually. So I'm pretty much sure I'm not going to keep that in the discussion, but definitely we can have a discussion with the clients, that is the Outlook and the ActiveSync, and the changes that is there in the sharing and the collaboration, whether it makes any change in the new version or we're going to have almost the same feature. And the other part is the unified messaging. What is the change, or is it the same? That's something we can discuss, and we can discuss about the batch mailbox move. It's not something new, but there is a lot difference when you do a batch mailbox move when it comes to 2013. And later we can talk about the high availability and site resiliency. Then we can say, what is this Exchange workload management? How do we deal with that? And finally, we can talk about the Exchange 2013 setup. And yesterday we talked about actually showing the setup in the screen, but today morning I did a setup, and I can see that with giving a 6 GB RAM to the system, it's taking almost like 50 minutes to complete the setup. So it may not be an advisable thing to actually do a setup and then wait for the sessions to complete. So I would request you guys, almost everyone who has joined today and yesterday, maybe make up a lab, install them, and then ask me the questions if there is something. But if the setup needs to be done, I have the system ready with me. Maybe we can actually take a call at that point and then do the sharing, but it's going to take like 50 minutes of time, and we're not going to have any quality information going on. We might be just looking at the screen and seeing whether it is going more forward or backward, whatever it is. So probably I think when it comes to setup, we'll discuss about setup, and we can internally discuss about the issues that you might have faced in the setup. Maybe you might have already done a setup by now, and then you might have faced something which you might want to discuss, like how you fixed it, or you want to find a solution you can actually throw up, and let's see what we can get up. And the final thing is going to be with this version, what is the component that got removed? Did they remove any of the component, or do we have almost everything which we had in the earlier portion? And that's something we can discuss. And so that's it. That's what we're going to do for today. So let's get going. So I think everybody is still with me. All right. Okay. So the We can actually talk about some of the changes which happen in the clients and the mobile. And I think one of the question which I had yesterday was, do we have any change in ActiveSync? So this is something which I want to say. There is no real new EAS version, or there is nothing hidden ActiveSync feature that came up with this version, that is Exchange 2013. So which means you're going to have almost every feature that you have in the ActiveSync that you had in the earlier version, that is going to get forwarded. So which means is very simple. I mean, you might have Windows 7.5 device, you might have a Windows 8.0. I mean, that's something which is released. You will not find any difference in the ActiveSync. It's going to have almost the same. Because even if the servers are changed, there's no real difference to the ActiveSync from the server side. There may be any look and feel change, that's definitely a client side, but nothing from the server. And I think somebody asked me this last day, and probably you got the answer by now. And the other thing is, the difference is this way. You had a command that is the new dash ActiveSync mailbox policy. That was a command that we had in the earlier version, which you used to create a policy for the ActiveSync, for more or less going to be a mobile device policy. So they just replaced that with a new name, that is new dash mobile mailbox policy. That's the only difference. And whatever you see inside the new dash ActiveSync mailbox policy is already carried forward. So the other thing is going to be the Outlook. I mean, that's the other client that we have, and we already discussed about Outlook in the last time, like a few introduction. That is going to be the MAPI option is no longer available. So the Outlook is not going to connect using MAPI to our server. It is going to use RPC over HTTP, or else it is called Outlook Anywhere. There is no MAPI interface anymore. And the other thing is the offline access to archive mailbox. This is one of the questions that we had yesterday, and that's when I said we shall be discussing this definitely when we come across the client side. You really do not have any option even now. You can't have an offline access to the archive mailbox even now. So you probably need to use the archive mailbox on online mode itself. And there is one reason why you didn't have the offline access to the archive mailbox, and that is basically the reason to use archive mailbox is more or less going to be you archive your older emails, which you do not need an access to wherever you are. So, and you are trying to actually reduce the size of your one moment. Okay, what I was saying is it's not really good. Even if you have a if you can cache your offline access, maybe your that portion is too big, and then your client is going to have too big OSD files, and then that's not really good from the client performance point of view as well. Even though the client that is 2013 does support the customization of the OSD file, this is not supported. So the question was actually the Outlook 2010 clients connect the same way. Okay, so let's keep it like this. The client that is going to connect, it is not regarding the version. It is any version that goes to our Exchange server. This is not a client issue. Client is still going to have a MAPI option. I mean, I'm not saying you buy Outlook 2013 and you don't have MAPI option there. No, you might have it because you might have older version running, the Exchange older version. The thing is, the new Exchange really doesn't do anything to MAPI. So when you are an Outlook user and your Outlook is being configured, that is going to use Outlook Anywhere, and that's RPC over HTTP only, HTTPS. Yeah. So there is another thing which is not really an Exchange or side thing, and that is the Outlook 2013 can control the size of OSD file. Now there is a reason for that, and that's because now the maximum size of a mailbox on Exchange 2013 is all the way up to 100 gigabytes. You can go up to 100 gigabytes for one mailbox. So there is one issue that your client should have that big storage first of all when you are doing a caching. And another thing is when you're going to download it, you need that big bandwidth, and then you need to have that high processing power and memory with you, so to deal with that. So we can have Outlook 2013 running, and then you control the OST's file size, so it doesn't go bigger than that. And the other thing is the Outlook is no longer going to connect using FQDN. It is how does it connect? It is using AutoDiscover, but it is going to create a connection point that is looking like a mailbox grid at your domain primary domain name. That is, if you have a domain name like abc.com, your connection will look like your mailbox grid at abc.com. All right, so I think that's about the I think Charles just joined, and he was the person he asked about the archive mailbox. I just want to inform, I mean, we just completed that portion just now, and we did not have the option to have archive mailbox offline access. That's not really available, and that's not really an exchange. It's not that way. Then your Outlook might be on a cache mode, and still it definitely doesn't take an offline copy. So that's almost well and clear. Like there is no option to access archive mailbox in offline mode. So that's about the clients in the mailbox, and I think pretty much sure about these right now. Like so there are a few things which I want to talk. Is actually the major change which happened is in Outlook web app. I mean, you don't find many changes on the other side, but Outlook web app, there is a lot changed. First one is your Outlook web app is actually optimized for touch device. I had a discussion with Iqbal some time back, and then he said he just configured this on his S2 and it works very well. So that's it is. I mean, it's something which is optimized for your touch device, and there are apps possible in Outlook web app right now. Like say you are a developer and you want to make an app that runs on Outlook web app, you can do it. Then not only that, you can go to office.com and download the app. And another thing is you as an administrator can decide whether the user can go there and download or whether you want to restrict. And the other thing is the third-party developers. Like say if somebody want to create something, yes, that's possible. You can actually make it and then put it in the office.com. And they just changed contacts. The name is changed to people. And the other thing is, if you have multiple contacts of the same person, the good part is it's going to show up as one single contact card. That's one good portion. Like say that's, I think it's already there in most of the client that we have, like a Windows that we have, the Windows mobile device. It really does that. Like say if you have a contact that is saved in Facebook, or if you have a contact that is saved somewhere else or locally on the phone, when you actually click for the user, you get one entry. So that's something which is carried forward here. And the other thing is the calendar. You can this is quite common to find. Many of the recipient who is joining the session right now as well, they might be looking at multiple calendars. So you have now option to merge these calendars and look at one view. So you have multiple calendars in a merged view, and that is quite easy to use, so that you don't have to go to multiple places and confirm that you are available. And the other thing is you get if you click on the month, you get another tab on the side, which actually not a tab, I can say one side, which actually talks about the agenda. It actually gives you a summary of what all things you have to do for this month. And when you click on anything, it pops out and then it gives you item details. I mean, it's not something that was possible earlier. It's more like, I can say it has increased to the graphical level. That's it. And the other thing is that's actually double. I mean, both the same. And the other thing is the Outlook web app offline access. This is something which is really good. Like say if you have an Outlook web app on the next to the, I mean, when you actually log into Outlook web app, you see your username written on the top right hand corner. Just next to that there is a drop down box. When you click on that, you get an option to say use Outlook web app offline mode. So if you click that, you get Outlook web app in an offline mode. But that really doesn't mean that you get almost everything in the Outlook web app offline mode. But yes, you get almost every recent communication which you did that will be downloaded. And this is something which is done from an Internet Explorer or a Safari. That is, the latest Safari and the Internet Explorer 10 will support this. So if you have a client that is running on a lower end than this, your offline option is not again going to work. So that's one thing. And there are a few things which is removed from the Outlook web app, which I will be discussing it when we are actually going to discuss what are removed. But this is something which is actually changed, which is added, and definitely when something is removed, that is also called change. But we have a specific portion of the this particular session, which is actually very end, which actually talks about what all things are removed. So this is about the client, this is about the mobile devices. There is no difference in the mobile device, there is no difference in the active sync, it's exactly the same. The only difference is the one command that you use in Outlook, Active Sync, and that is the new dash Active Sync mailbox policy is no longer available. That is actually replaced with the new dash mailbox mobile mailbox policy. So that's the thing, and then let's move on to the next part. I think we are all good with the client because that's actually a very simple part of it. And I think today's session might be much smaller than yesterday because we're not going to, if you're choosing not to do the setup, I mean, rather than just having a discussion, it might be quite a lot smaller. And but yes, definitely we can use the time if required for discussions. And the other thing is the are changes in the sharing and the collaboration side. There is something new called site mailbox which came in picture. This is something which people are talking about right now. There is a site mailbox in Exchange, and what is that? And that is not really an Exchange only option. That is only going to come to you if you have an Exchange 2013 as well as a SharePoint Server 2013 is done, and you have to configure it. And this site mailbox is something that you see from the or configure from the SharePoint as well. So this is not something that you can do with just Exchange running. What is this going to be? This is going to be a shared storage kind of structure, which is more or less like a public folder. We can actually even think about replacing a public folder. What is this? Actually a site mailbox, which is going to have documents from the document library. It is going to have emails and all sort of things. So this is actually a one place which you can find a lot of things. So the reason for that is very simple. People use SharePoint instead of public folder, but one question that comes up is going to be, what about the emails that I share? Because some of the public folders that you have is actually contains emails, and this site mailbox is one of the options that you can use at that point. Like say you can have a site mailbox which is going to store almost everything that you have in SharePoint. SharePoint means you can have documents, even actually exchange email. So that's the good thing about the site mailboxes. And what about next? What is the change that you find? I mean, the sharing and the collaboration. There is another thing which I want to talk about is the which probably is not there in the slide, and that is the link. All the three products, that is the collaboration products, are tightly combined right now, which means if you make a search from Exchange Outlook Web Access, it is going to search for your link conversation, it's going to search for your SharePoint content, it is going to search for your archive, it is going to search almost everywhere, including the network share drives, and then come up and then come back to you and say, okay, this is the what you have. So that's again a sharing and collaboration part. So it doesn't matter where the data is, there's a one place to search and then get all the details. And that's about the sharing and the collaboration. And when you talk about unified messaging, maybe I'm pretty much sure this is something which many are not interested in because it's not something which is running on most of the Exchange servers. But the Microsoft Exchange Unified Messaging Call Router Service, this is what actually dictates where the call should go. One moment. Sorry about that. So what I was saying is the unified messaging portion is actually split between two roles. First of all, there is a client access server role. Another one is a mailbox server role. Um, it's something which is done by these both together. One guy does just the call routing, and the other person is responsible for messaging service. So the call routing is actually running on the client access server role, and the messaging service is running on the mailbox server role. So both the servers are required to be up and running, not like the earlier version wherein you only need one version running. And as in 2010, there is actually one thing. These servers also support IP version 6. So it's nothing new from 2010, but yes, I just want to say IPv6 is something which is going on all around. So just want to keep in this slide that it does support IP version 6. And there is another thing is the SP2 and SP1 of 2010 required an UCMA 2.0 installation whenever you want to actually install a unified messaging role. So the what actually happened right now is the UCMA 2.0 had a lot of issues. Like not only from the functional point of view, you had a lot of issues as well fixed. I mean, there were too many updates coming up for that, and there is actually a UCMA 4.0, and that's what is going to be used for the at this point. So you need to have a UCMA 4.0, and the other good part is the speech-related services. Whenever you actually send a voice message, it was quite common to see you actually to get a voicemail preview. But now the good part is using a speech engine 11.0 and UCMA 4.0, there is even a grammar generation and language improvement. So it actually looks at your grammar and then it actually makes changes. I'm not saying that you might be talking in a different or wrong grammar, but yes, when the speech engine recognizes your words, sometimes it actually renders to a completely different sentence, sometimes with no meaning as well. So that's something which is taken care. I'm not saying it is 100%, but still it is actually a lot of improvement. And that's about the unified messaging part, and I'm pretty much sure many may not be actually really interested in unified messaging because still I'm sorry, I think oh, is it? Okay. Is it better right now? Okay. All right. That's good. So I think we probably are we all good with the unified messaging? I mean, there is nothing new with the unified messaging, but or you were are are we actually good for this one? You were able to hear me when I was talking about the sharing and collaboration? Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, so that's about the unified messaging. I think the only thing you should understand about unified messaging that's new is UCMA 4.0. That's something, and speech engine 11.0. That's something that we can think about when we talk about the unified messaging. Um, then comes the changes in the batch mailbox moves. Okay, batch mailbox move. Uh, I think okay. Uh, Iqbal, am I audible at this point? All right, perfect. Okay. So the changes that is there in the batch move. I mean, what is mean by a batch move? Batch move is actually like you move a mailbox with a collection. Like say you collect a huge number of mailbox and move it at one shot. And that's not something that is new. Definitely not. We used to do it in the earlier version, and but what is the difference now? There's a lot of changes right now. Like first of all, let me actually talk about what is a batch move for somebody who doesn't know what is a batch move. It's actually an ability to move multiple mailboxes in one large batch. And the next portion when I'm talking is actually something which you would be required to do using a script in the older version, that is email notification after the move being during the move being reporting. So like say there was no option like that. Like say during the move request, you are not actually I mean, earlier what you used to do, you actually look at the statistics and then manually put a PowerShell script to look that in a quite a bit of interval and then send you an email. But this is something which is built in right now. And there is another thing is the automatic retry, automatic prioritization of the moves. It'll understand which part of the messages are going and which is actually more important than the other parts. And the other thing is the how many mailboxes can we move? There is no limit. It is up to you, like how your hardware is, how much is your like bandwidth. It all depends on that. Like say there's no real limit, but I would say definitely it is advisable to keep it under 10 at one point of time. Now I'm not talking about, again, batch can be a group, but of that group do 10 move at a time, but batch can be n number. But at one point of time, how many mailboxes can you move? That depends on your bandwidth and the processing capability of the server. And the default is still the 4. Okay, perfect. So the other thing is, yes, this is one good part, and that is the primary and the personal archive mailbox can be moved together, or if you want, you can move it separate. So there is a good part right now. Earlier, this was a limitation from the 2010 point of view. Like if you have an archive mailbox, we have to keep it on the same database. And now we have an option to keep archive on a different database and your primary mailbox on a different database. So when you move, definitely when you're moving from an older version, both are going to be on the same database. On one move request, you can actually specify your primary mailbox to go to one particular database and then your archive to go to another mailbox. And if you want, another database. So that's something what is possible right now. And see, you have an option to interfere the move request, which is actually possible in the older version as well. Like say you can actually ask to suspend the move request before completion. So like that is something which was possible earlier, and this is possible now as well. And there is another good thing that is going to be periodic incremental sync, which means when you move a mailbox across, suppose say after the move request, you got something new to that mailbox, you have an option to sync it between each other. So that's something again new with the new version of Exchange, and that's all about the batch move mailbox. But I have actually tried to keep another slide which actually gives you an idea how to do this. Say it is actually one is a local move request. I'm pretty much sure almost everybody is aware of that. Like say this is exactly the same what you have in Exchange 2010, like new dash move request, and then so how you do a local move request. And what about if you want to do a local batch move request? And that's actually using a new dash migration batch. And this is a new command. It was not there in the older version. So there is actually an example which I have given. That what is that going to do? It is actually going to take the data from a CSV file and then put the target database, and the log file is going to have the time zone with the specific standard time. And the other thing is, it's not necessary that you want to actually move with our CSV file. We can actually even move things like say get dash request and then pipe it. Like say if you want to do a get dash mailbox and then put a whereas command as a filter, so you can actually filter with the particular criteria, like say a department criteria, and then pipe it to this command, then it is going to do that. So it is actually not just a CSV format. If that is as per the CSV, this is something that you can use. You can actually just copy and run it. It's just going to run it. And you can see one thing here, and that is the name local move 1. That is something that which I added there. So that's a name that we give to the batch. So once the batch is created, you can actually either give the same command with a dash autostart command. When in that case, it is going to start up automatically, or else you can actually create the batch and leave it there. And then when you are ready, you can go and start dash migration batch and identity. So that's one thing. So maybe I'm pretty much sure that the new dash move request or with a batch name. I mean, we used to do is like a get dash command and then move request and dash batch name, and that's what we used to do in the older version. So that's something that you don't have to do right now. So you can actually create batch here, and the if you want to just move one mailbox, it's still there. New dash move request. So that's about the batch move mailbox moves. I think it's quite clear with this. Uh, the other thing is, suppose say you want to get the details about what is the migration going on, and that's a command. Actually, it is get dash migration batch, and then it actually you have to input the batch name, and then you get the details. And if you are sorry, that's something that if you want to get the details of one, but if you want to get the details of every batch that you have, that's you don't give any a name to ahead of it. It is going to list out the batch names. And the other thing is the migration statistics. That is something which you want to see, like how is the progress going, and that is actually get dash migration use statistics. And this is something which I actually talked to just now some time back. Like, what if you want to move the primary mailbox and archive mailbox to a separate database? And that is how it is done. Like, say, new dash move request identity username target database, and that is going to be the target database for your primary mailbox. And you have to give another one which says archive target database, and then database name. That's it. So it's going to go to two different places. And there is one thing which you should understand is when you're creating a cross forest move, you have to make sure that you make or configure the migration endpoint first, and then you create the cross forest batch move. That's something. There are two commands to do that, and you need to make sure that the endpoints are created. For that, you need to give the source, and the source is something which is actually from your end. If the destination is on another forest, definitely you need to give the credentials to go through that. So that's a two-way process. And so that's about the batch move. So you can do batch move locally as well as remotely. I think. Is there any question on batch move? I think it's definitely quite straightforward, but there is nothing we can go ahead and then talk about the high availability features that is available with 2013. And the high availability features that you see here is something. What do you mean by high availability? High availability means the things are up and running. It's not only because of a power outage, it even actually happens because of a negligence, or it can even happen because the user did a mistake. So the availability is not just a server availability, it is actually a combination of availability of your emails, including the content that is there inside the email. So there is actually DAG will take care of your database copy. Say the mailbox database is copied across, and then that's what DAG is going to take care of. And it is exactly the same which you have. Sorry, not exactly the same, but it is definitely almost similar, but with added features. So that is something we can speak right now. But definitely DAG is carried forward with extra features. And this is something called single item recovery, and this is not something new for anybody, but this is more optimized right now. If any user deletes a particular data from his mailbox, you still have an option to recover that. And there is a retention policy in place wherein you don't want anybody to delete something, you create a retention policy. Even if the person deletes it, it's not going to go away from the mailbox. So it's all something possible. And the other thing is the lagged database copies. Like, say, you don't need to copy the database immediately at a particular time, but you want to wait for some time and copy the database, and that's what is lagged to database copies, and that's all possible right now. So the other thing is, what is the major improvement? And that is actually one thing is the managed availability. Just like the availability that you had in the earlier version, this is actually a newly engineered part of it. It is managed availability, and that's what they call for it. That's a name they have given. Just like managed store, what they give to the new information store, and this is actually what is called managed availability. So what is that actually? The improvements that they made to the availability that was there in DAG, they renamed that to managed availability. And there is multiple things in that. Like say, one is because of managed store as well as the managed availability, now you can have multiple database running on the same disk. It's not just one. I mean, you can have more than one. That's because the IOPS is greatly reduced, and the managed availability got a new feature that is automatic reseed. So, which means if the our target database has got some trouble, or sorry, the source has got some trouble, and then it actually moves over. And if you find any of these, one of the databases down, it actually reseed. There is a different reasons why the database might go down, and that is actually what if you have a storage failure, your disk failure. What do you mean by that? Like say you had 10 disks and out of that one disk had a database running, and then one of the disk is actually failed, but you have a spare disk running on the same server. The Exchange is automatically going to reseed your database to the spare disk that you have. So there, it doesn't involve administrator activity. You just need to make sure that you have a spare disk available on the server, and Exchange server is going to take care of those. So this is something which you can think about when you are planning. Now, when there is an Exchange server, and if your organization is very well concerned about the availability, put a spare disk on the servers, and then that server, if that one of the disk goes down, it is Exchange who's going to automatically reseed to the other spare disk that you have. So there is nothing you have to worry about. And the other thing is the lagged copy enhancement. What do you mean by that? Like say, what is mean by a lagged copy? The when you do a DAG, the data is copied across. How it is done? It actually copies the log files in the first point, and then it replays the log file to the database. So there could be possibilities that the numbers that you gave, the number of logs that you want to retain, and before it is replayed to the database, if in case the disk is actually having less space, it is not going to go with your number. If the disk is less, it is going to immediately replay those logs. So it actually looks at the disk space, and if disk space is actually good enough, then only the lagged settings that you gave is going to work. Otherwise, it is going to do its own calculation, and it will automatically do them. And whenever you have the single copy, that is there. I mean, sorry, what do you mean by single copy? Like a DAG is running with a single copy. There is another copy. You're going to get an alert. And what about the other one? That is the DAG network. You had to configure that earlier yourself, but that is something that is actually automatically configured right now. So that's all about the high availability. I'm pretty much sure this is not this small, because creating an high availability solution is quite a lot complicated than what we say. That's why I said in the last portion that we need to have a specific sessions that is actually more or less concerned about high availability. How do you do this? I mean, this is what I can do, but we should have more or less like a discussion on how to do these. And that can be possible, definitely. I mean, we can actually schedule it as per our availability, and then we should be good to discuss on those, like, deploying a DAG, and then understanding the DAG, what all configurations that you should be looking for, what are the best practices you should be looking for. So those are things that you can do, we can do, basically, something that we need to schedule. And that's about the high availability. Definitely there are a lot of changes in the DAG, but if you ask me, is the DAG carried forward? Yes, DAG is carried forward, but there are more options. Like say, automatic reseed is one of the biggest thing, and automatic recovery from storage failure using a spare disk is the other best thing. So those are the two major improvements I can see when you look at the DAG in this version and the older version. Otherwise, it's almost not. It is actually exactly the same concept. The log will be copied over, and the logs are the first part. Actually, whenever a DAG is created, it does the seeding, and the seeding is done. The logs shipping will happen, and the log will be replayed. So those things are all still the same. There is an inspector which actually inspects the log file, which to confirm that the status of the logs are good. So it is okay. The Ashish is asking if you can include the public folder as well in the DAG, and that's the answer is actually very simple. This is the DAG is done to Mailbox database. DAG is something that you do on a database level, and the public folder is now sitting on a Mailbox database. So as long as the Mailbox database is on DAG, your public folder is automatically on DAG. There's nothing extra you have to do for public folder. So I think that answers you, I think. So that's about the DAG, and then we probably are. I think it is something which we are. I think okay. Let's probably go into a depth. I think I already spoke about this. Something which when I was saying the other slide. Uh, the managed availability is going to be something like what is the changes it did. It was actually main focus area was actually monitoring and recovery oriented. It was not necessarily administration. Main focus used to be on the monitoring part and the recovery oriented features. And something like a proactive restore service should be available, and initiating a server failover automatically and alerting a administrator. That's what actually they had in the mind, and they did it. So what is managed store? This is we already discussed yesterday. That's the new name they gave for the re-return information store process. And the other things we already discussed some time back in on the other slide, and the lagged copy enhancement as well. So I think the single copy alert enhancement, maybe definitely many might have been using a schedule script. That's not really required right now, and that's something which is actually in place, so built in right now. So that's about the high availability. And what about the workload? I mean, now many have been having questions like, Mailbox overall has got a heavy load. But there is one thing right now, that is we are running on a world right now where almost everything is 64-bit, and even the server cost is reducing, processing cost is reducing, memory cost is reducing. So you can have a bigger server, definitely. Definitely you need a bigger server than the 2010. That is something that you can come to know. Like say it's something that when you do a installation on your lab, the same, if you keep almost the same configuration what you used to do in your old Exchange labs, you probably will get to know that this version requires more resources. So definitely it requires more resource, but yes, resource cost is reducing, but that's something which is good. And the other good part is the IOPS to the almost every part, like memory and every part, is actually to the best level optimized. And the other few things what you can do is, like say if you want to optimize yourself rather than doing it the way that Exchange does, you can actually make a workload policy. So how do you apply a workload policy is something which is actually a question that almost everybody might have, and that is we need two things in place. One is a workload policy itself, another one is a workload management policy. And once you create a workload policy, you attach that to associate that to a management policy, and you connect that management policy to a particular server. And that's what you do. So the very first thing that you do is you create a workload management policy. That's with the command line, that is new dash workload management policy. And after that, once you're done with that, you create a workload policy and assign it to the above workload management policy. So that's a command, that is new dash workload policy. That command itself gives you an option to assign it to the workload management policy that you just made. And the other thing is, when you want to connect it, you just need to put the set dash exchange server command and workload management policy, give the name and the server where you want to connect it. But there is possibilities that you want to make one workload management policy to all the servers in the organization, and that is quite a lot easier, because there is a by default workload management policy that comes with the Microsoft Exchange, and that is called Global Overwritten Workload Management Policy. It comes with the box. So what you have to do is just create a workload policy and attach it to these global management policy, and That's it. That management policy is already added or applied to every service. So I think was this quite a lot clear? Like, um, what is this workload management? Like, so it is actually like to monitor and control your system resources. When you create a workload management policy, you get a lot of options, and this is all about how you go through this. And I'm not saying this is exactly a new thing. There was actually throttling option available in the earlier version that was possible, but this is actually more advanced, or I can say this is more manageable right now. All right. So I think everybody is still there with me. All right. Okay. I mean, probably I think I actually want to make sure that it is actually unmuted. The only problem is if I would prefer to have a discussion wherein almost everybody is unmuted, but the only problem at that point is going to be the disturbance that comes up from the other side. So that's the only reason I'm not doing that. But please do ping me whenever there is anything in between. I'm not saying that if you have a question, type the whole question. Put a question mark. I'll wait for you to write it. I'm fine with it. Like, say, just type a question mark, and rather than going to the next slide. So I think that should be the best way. Maybe whenever I'm taking the next session, I should say this in the beginning. Like, say, if you're on a slide and you have a question, just put a question mark. I will wait for you to put the question and then go to the next slide. And I think that will be more easier. All right. So that's about the workload management right now. And I think I'm really sorry that this slide is quite a lot smaller. The reason is I'm pretty much sure you're not really concerned about what is written in the install Windows features. What I want to actually talk right now is what is in an Exchange 2013 setup. What are the things that you should be aware of before even doing a setup? The very first thing is, as usual for any Exchange server installation, you need to be aware of the Active Directory preparation. And so you might need a system from where you're doing an Active Directory preparation, and that system requires like .NET 4.5, Windows Management Framework 3.0, and Remote Tools Administration Pack, RSAT. That's something that you can call. So that's something you should be installed. And there is another thing, like say the server on which you're going to install the Exchange server. So in Exchange 2013, you have only two options. Either you put just Mailbox role, or else you will put both the ones. So there is a good thing. Even if it is just a Mailbox or a combined Mailbox with the client access server role, you have to put these components. Like say you need to have IIS installed, you need to have Windows Identity Foundation. So those are all the things that you need definitely. And when you have just a client access server role, your requirements are quite less. There is less things required, and that's when you can actually you can see less things are there. And there is one thing you can see, the desktop experience. The desktop experience is installed on almost every Exchange server, and not almost every Exchange server, on every Exchange 2013 server, because desktop experience was a prerequisite that was required for a unified messaging. And now unified messaging is not just present on one system, it is actually split between two. So desktop experience is something that you should have on both. And so that's it. I mean, if you want to install it, you can actually go ahead and copy this, put it on the shell, and that's going to install them. So, but there's few things which I want to talk about. It's going to be on the AD preparation first of all, and then we'll go with the installation. The very first thing is preparing the Active Directory domain or the Active Directory itself. The very first thing, what you do on any Exchange installation, you make sure that your schema is prepared for this version. So you can actually do a command that is setup/prepare schema or setup/ps. This is exactly the same what you had in the older times, so this is not something new. And the other thing is, it's going to set a schema version that is 15137. So what do you have to do? I mean, when you are done with this, you go there and see what is the version. you will make sure that you see that as 15137. And there is another thing, that is you have to update your AD after that, and that is actually done using prepare AD command, and that version number is going to be 15449. And there is another one, that is the prepare domain. That's to prepare your domain. Okay, so there is few changes to your setup, and that is, unlike the older version, Microsoft now suggests to install Mailbox server role first and not the CAS. That was the case in the earlier versions, but not right now. I mean, right now, if you are actually doing on multiple servers, Microsoft suggests that install Mailbox server first and then install the CAS server. So, but if both are running on the same system, it really doesn't matter, because it's upon the hands of the setup. So, but and there is other few things. Your Forest functional level should be at least Windows Server 2003. And there is another thing, schema master role. That is a role which is going to allow you to update the schema. That should be running at least Windows Server 2003 with SP1 or later. So this is one good part. Like, say, if you're actually thinking of putting up an Exchange 2013, it really doesn't matter whether you have an AD running on 2003, as long as it has got SP1 and the schema master role. My recommendation would be installing SP1 on almost every DC that you have, and but that's the minimum. I mean, as if you have a better one, you will definitely have a better AD functions. And there's another thing, that the supported Outlook, you need to understand that before even setting up an Exchange, whether your clients are ready. That is, you can see here, there is no Outlook 2003 mentioned. Yes, I mean 2003 is no longer supported. So if you were having an environment which is actually running on 2003, now it's time for you to upgrade and then go with the 2007 at least, or else it should be a 2003. Sorry, 2013. And preview is actually an old version. It's already released. So Macintosh users, it should have at least Entourage 2008, or else Mac Outlook for Mac 2011. So anything earlier than this is not going to work. Okay, and there is I think this is something which is quite a lot similar. I think the other slide is actually exactly the same where we are talking right now. The AD preparation, and the Active Directory preparation is 3-step. One is schema preparation and preparing AD, and the other one is preparing the domain. Okay, and what if we want to verify it? I mean, that was actually mentioned in the small part, but this is something you can check in a bigger version. Once you have these prepared, you should have the Exchange organization having a version number added. I mean, it will have multiple versions, but that should have 15.0.0.516.032 added there. And the schema version should be 15137, and the configuration naming context should be 15449, and the default naming context should be 13236. If you find these, your AD is good to go with an Exchange setup. Okay. Okay, there is another thing which I would like to update you. As of now, there's no way you can actually install an Exchange 2013 in an existing Exchange environment, which means if you have an Exchange 2007 or 10 running, you cannot install an Exchange 2013. The reason is none of the existing versions of Exchange is compatible with Exchange Server 2013, and there is an update which will come for 2007. There is an update which probably should come by August or so. That update will have all the things which will be cleared, and then you should be good to install on the existing Exchange 2007 environment. But if you have a 2010, again, 2010 SP3 is not yet released, so you have to wait until SP3 is released, and then do the installation. So the SP3 installations are something which is not there right now. So you can think about this way. You can say, right, I did not discuss anything about migration in the whole slide. The reason was there is no insight to migration as of today because there is no possibility to do that. Um, but definitely, I'm not saying that you can't do it. Definitely, the updates will be released, and we will have to migrate. Yes, there is no way you can migrate right now. You have to wait for these updates to come. Then, first of all, um the once the update is happen on your older version, then you can introduce this. So if you have a test environment, you should make sure that that test doesn't have an older version running. Arun was saying public folder is just another mailbox. Oh yeah, that is true. There's no public folder database. This is something which we discussed yesterday, the last day session, in the information store part. There is no public folder database anymore. Okay, so there is few things. I mean, I just want to actually ask you that, the GUI installation, I mean, and the installation, the CLI installation is still there. If you want to do a GUI installation, I would make sure, I mean, I would recommend you to go to this TechNet article and then go ahead with the installation. But there is few things which I would say. Suppose, say, in an earlier slide, I actually showed up a lot of Windows features that you should install before installing an Exchange. Now there is a good part with Exchange GUI. There is a checkbox in the GUI itself which says install the required Windows features, which means if the Windows features are not there, that checkbox will take care of installing those. I think I was quite clear on that. And the GUI other portions are the look and feel of the GUI installer is all different. It is all like white and blue right now. And that's the difference that I can see right now. And while installing, you get an option whether you should disable the anti-malware protection. And by default, it is enabled unless you make any changes to those in the installer. And the CLI installation, there is one thing which got added and which I want to actually stress out is everything else is almost same, like setup slash mode colon install slash role, client access and mailbox and organization name in case if that organization is not yet made. That is, I accept Exchange server license terms. This is a new switch which came up right now and which you should add while you want to install. So it's not like the older CLI wherein it'll ask you to wait for some time, and if you don't press any key, it feels that you have accepted it. But now you have to put the switch and then proceed. And if you want to uninstall the Exchange, and this is the same command, setups.exe/m uninstall. And there is one thing which I would like to say. The download which I used allows me to uninstall the roles as well, like roles one by one, and which is actually not supported. If you put that switch, it doesn't work. What I meant is, suppose you have a server running with client access server role as well as the mailbox server role running. If you type setups mode uninstall /r:/mb thinking that only the MB will be uninstalled, no, it is not going to happen that way. You can't run those commands. You can either uninstall everything or else you can run it. And the same scenario happens right now. You cannot reinstall an Exchange server, so that option is not there either. Recover server is there. I mean, that's something which is still going on, but definitely you can't reinstall. I think this is something which we talked in the very beginning of the session, that the setup, deployment, and the designing part is something we should be discussing in much details later on, like including the capacity planning. So maybe we can actually keep it for a different day and then talk about those things in specific. But this is something which you can actually get to know in general, like how you can do an installation. And the Exchange is something Yep, setup.exe/prepare schema. Oh yeah, that's it. Actually, you have to put this /I accept exchange server license term switch with almost every command that you do with setup.exe. This is something which I wanted to discuss. Like say, prepare schema, prepare whatever you do, you basically it doesn't run until you put this command. So yeah, that's it. That's true. So I think that's about the setup. I think, do you want to actually see the setup? I'm pretty much sure it is going to take like 50 minutes. I'm pretty much sure because I saw it today morning. It took me almost 50 to 60 minutes, and it is definitely not that exciting to see that blue window just popping up saying 1 of 15, 2 of 15, 3 of 15. So like there are 15 steps involved in installing. So I would recommend you guys to download it and go ahead with the installation. Okay, perfect. So, see, go with the installation and update me if there is something going on. But there are a few things which I can talk about. Is if the installation fails, you have few options to do. Like either you go into the Exchange setup log and search for the setup log, and that setup log is too big. Then what do? You should rather open up the registry editor and go into the software part of it and Microsoft Exchange part of it and go into the Exchange. You will see a new key that is added there which says watermark. What you should rather do is you copy that watermark and search that in your Exchange setup log. You will go to the exact same place where the setup is actually failed. So you don't have to read the whole setup log. That's just a shortcut to do that. Or if you wanted to read everything, I mean, it's fine. You can do that. But if you want to go to the place where it actually failed, that's one way to do it. You can go to the registry, copy the watermark, and then search it in the setup log. And setup log and event viewer is the two friends that you can use whenever you have any setup related issues. All right, perfect. So I think that's about the Exchange setup. And let me actually move forward with the what all things are removed. Okay, are we all good until now? All right, perfect. Um, See, the very first thing that you should understand what is removed from the architecture point of view is there is no more hub transport server role, there is no more unified messaging server role, and somebody might actually come back to me and say, oh, there is no edge transport role as well. Really, that is not removed from the architecture. You can add a 2010 or 7 version edge transport server role because there is no replacement so far made in 2013 and there is no plans to do that. So that's one part. And the 2010 version edge server, that is something that you can use if the edge from the architecture point of view, hub and unified is no longer there. And um, as of now, there is no release documents which is released saying that the edge server role may be released, but that's something which is quite a lot possibilities are there that's not going to be there. So the other thing is the management interface. The two friend of yours, that is Exchange Management Console and Exchange Control Panel, is no longer going to be there. You won't see them anywhere. And there is one thing. How did you used to go to the Exchange Control Panel earlier? You used to put the FQDN of the user, FQDN of the server, and you put /ECP. What happens right now when you type that? When you type /ECP, it's going to go to Exchange Admin Center. That's about the management interface point of view. The Exchange Management Console and Exchange Control Panel both are no longer there. And when you go to the URL which you used to use for Exchange Control Panel earlier, it is going to go to Exchange Admin Console. So it is not that ESE. Like you will not. How do you go to Exchange Admin Console? The URL is FQDN of the server /ECP. I mean, it doesn't ask you if you type ESE, it's not going to work. It is still ECP. So that's one thing. And the other thing is the client access, which is something which I spoke about earlier. 2003 version is no longer supported. RPC over TCP is again no longer supported. Now it is going to be all our Outlook Anywhere. Uh, and then there is actually quite a lot of thing which is actually gone from the Outlook web app, and that is actually access to the shared email folder. You can't access a shared email folder anymore from an Outlook web app, at least until this version, the release that we have right now. And this is one thing which I would like to say. The release that is available as a download right now is actually the final release. I mean, I'm pretty much sure it is not going to change until there is a service pack release. So that's really the final of it. And the distribution list moderation. I'm not saying distribution list moderation is not there, but you can't do that from Outlook web app. That's one thing. And yes, MIME is an older way of encrypting an email system, and that is no longer there. There was a lot of issues why SMIME was removed. That is, one is because when SMIME is released, you put on any of the mails, there is probably a possibility that you may not be able to apply the messaging policies. Even the antivirus is unable to scan those encrypted messages. Even there are impact to the custom transport agents which third parties are making. And then now what? I mean, we are actually having something called information rights management, and that's what is going to take care of that security part. Spell check is no longer there on Outlook web app. Now that's one thing which many might ask, what about if you want it? That's something, if you look at the IE 10, that is Internet Explorer 10 features, Internet Explorer 10 have a built-in spell check option. So that's the reason they removed it from here. So if you're using Internet Explorer 10 and the latest Safari, those or most of the latest browsers do have a spell check that is getting done from the local browser itself. So it is not going to be done from the server end, but still you can do a spell check as long as you have these versions of our Internet Explorer running. You have no option to keep the reading pane at the bottom of the page. That's not customizable. And if you get an email with another email attached inside it, you can't reply to that attached email. That's all the limitations that you find in the Outlook web app. And mail flow related parts, there is actually a few things, and that is regarding the mail flow, the linked connector is no longer there. That is gone. What is a link connector? A receive connector that takes the email is straight away linked to a send connector. It doesn't process anything. It just goes out. And that mechanism is no longer there. And when you come across anti-spam and anti-malware protection, there are a few things. So the anti-spam management was earlier possible using Exchange Management Console, but that didn't really carry to the Exchange Admin Center. So you have to use the Exchange Management shell to do that. And this is one of the heartbreaking thing which I'm going to say. There is no more connection filtering agent. So whatever you used to do on a block list like RBL, real-time block list, or whatever you call, that's not there in Exchange 2013. So connection filtering agent is gone. And there is actually, when it comes to messaging compliance and policy and compliance, there's no real difference. The only thing is the retention policies are replaces the managed folder. So there's no managed folder concept that is replaced by retention policies. So this is something you should keep in mind. That is a connection filtering agent, because many of us rely on RBLs to even on our existing exchange. So the new version will not actually have those. That option is gone, but if you want that, then you need to put an edge in front of it, because edge just got all these agents. All right, so I think that's about the two mail flow. Now I'm pretty much sure you're going to cry. There is no Exchange best practice analyzer so far. That tool is not available for Exchange 2013. That is a reason why I said is because that's used to be one of the most used tool by most of the Exchange administrators when something goes bad. You run the best practice analyzer and see what shows up there. And so that is not there. the Mailflow troubleshooter, that was a tool which was quite useful, which is not there again. Our performance monitoring tool, that is not there, so you have to use the performance monitoring that comes with the Windows to do a performance monitoring. And there is no performance troubleshooter, and even there is no routing log viewer. I believe that's all because these tools are not really developed for these versions. Maybe in some amount of time you may get these, but there is no these tools are not available as of now. And one of these, like these two, like a Mailflow troubleshooter and the best practice analyzer, is really a useful one. Most probably that might come up, but that's not there. So that's about the discontinued uh, it's actually it's not really necessary, but I don't know because there is no report saying that they are working on it either. So as of now, this is something which we know that's not there. And what all tools do you use? I think best practice analyzer is something you probably will go through every configurations yourself and see if there's everything is good. The other part of Mailflow troubleshooter. Uh, I'm pretty much sure you might be required to use any third parties, or even there is a I mean, it's all up to the brain power right now. I mean, use the knowledge that you have and resolve. But maybe they might come with these tools later, but that's something which is not there right now. So I didn't want to keep this slide in the very first. I did it for this way. The only reason is many people are going to be disappointed when you do not see Exchange Best Practice Analyzer. And I am pretty much sure they may come with these Best Practice Analyzer, maybe as a separate download. But right now these tools are not available. And there is one more thing. Now there is no Exchange Management Console, right? So how do you go to these tools? I mean, I'm not saying every tools are removed. I mean, there are tools definitely, but these tools are removed because there is actually a new console which you will find. Like say, whenever you go into the once you install Exchange, and I think Iqbal might have already seen it today. And I'm pretty much sure you installed it quite a long back as well. You made a blog on the same thing. There is a tools available. There is the tools console, but that tools console is doesn't have these tools. That's it. So that's all about what is removed. And if you ask me, that's the end of end of the part 2. I'm sorry. And so that's it. And probably I would probably use the rest of the time. Probably we can have a discussion. And as I said, it was quite shorter because we're not doing the setup. But I would like to say it this way. I'll probably pull it back to the very first slide, which actually talks about what we discussed. All right, here. So, okay. We should be at this point. I'm pretty much sure whosoever was joined yesterday should be quite a good amount of knowledge with you, which will actually gives you an idea about what is an Exchange architecture is, what is an admin sender, what is information store for Exchange 2013, and certificate management. It is very, very easy. It is not actually very difficult. Renewing a certificate or adding a certificate, it's a simple task right now. And the messaging policy and compliance, anti-malware protection, transport rules, mail flow. Then we talked about recipient management. We didn't talk about every recipient management, but we talked about the new things that came up in the recipient management, and the new things that is in the clients and the mobiles, and whatever is new in the sharing and the collaboration, the unified messaging part, then the batch mailbox moves, high availability and site resiliency. Then we talked about the Exchange workload management, and then Exchange 2013 setup. We just went through the command line, whatever we have in with hand, and then finally we talked about what are removed, and we said a few of the talked about a few of the tools that are removed as well. So that was the end of the session, the 2 sessions that we had. And I would like to request you all to actually go to these the other session, which is already recorded, which is already uploaded by now, and then you can go through that. So those who have to review that again, just go through that, review that, and I'm sure there is actually few issues in the recording as well. Like as I said, it's not a CBT recording; it's just a link recording which we made. So, but still, you can hear me in that. And then probably, I just want to keep an open. Maybe an open service saying that if you are guys are willing to uh, see more like these, I think I'm pretty much fine to actually have more sessions like this. First of all, like say, I can keep more sessions as long as these sessions are not really boring or this is really informative. Then I'm pretty much happy to keep more sessions like this or more detailed session on Exchange architecture, information store, then messaging policy and compliance. The other one is the mail flow and the high availability and recite resiliency, and then setup. Yeah. So it's all up to you now. So I can, you can actually probably put me as a question in the chat if there is anything that is going on in your mind, and then, or else you can just give me the feedback of what happened just now, and if you are willing to be a part of the earlier ones, it should be possible. Uh, no, actually, I'm not saying that the RAID 5 is actually a replacement. Sorry, it's a replacement for RAID 5. It is something that is. I should only think about this as this scenario. Like say, uh, if you have a reason to keep a RAID 5, it's always good. I mean, I'm not saying the RAID 5 is bad. It's a hardware level high availability. Basically, these are actually useful for those who have a direct attached storage. Uh, like say those who cannot afford RAID, these options will give them more security. But I'm not saying that okay, Exchange is going to say, oh, get rid of RAID 5. No, RAID 5 has got other features as well. It is not just the failure trouble. RAID 5 has got a better IOPS as well compared to the other disk. So that's not definitely or necessarily a replacement, but definitely if there is a cost concern, yes, definitely you can think about that. So how about any other questions or? Oh yeah, perfect. I actually forgot to say that actually. Iqbal actually made a slide and that's not really now. It's way back. You can see the date in that actually 07. That's the month. So it's almost when the exchange was actually released and in the market. So I think you can. That's definitely a good documentation on setup. So definitely you can go through that and understand what are the different slides you can see in this installation. And another thing I would say is probably I would like to say like say the Road2Master that's actually a uh, it's not necessarily, let's keep it like this. It's actually a forum where I can keep more people actually join and then discuss about the technologies. So if you need anything like a technology discussion, keep it as a post in there, and if that is not visible, I can take it off and put it as an admin. So that's you're most welcome to put anything in there. And then even actually if you published anything new and you want to actually share it with the people, yeah, go through, and then we should be good to go through that definitely. And I would like to say the main purpose is definitely the knowledge transfer. And something that I understand is you give the knowledge to anybody, unlike any other things, the knowledge only increases, it doesn't decrease. I mean, even if you give it to someone. So that's a good means to do as well. And I would like to say thank you all for today's session. And today's recording will be also there on the YouTube by today evening.